Path Media. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the descent of Syril Karn. Let's go.
You're listening to
Path of the Jedi.
with your host, Ronnie Cruz.
All right, welcome to Path of the Jedi, the podcast where Star Wars meets personal development. My name is Ronnie Cruz, your host for this maddening adventure. That's right, maddening adventure. If you're a regular listener to the show, if you've been following the show for any length of time, you know I have been gone for the last 2 weeks, or I haven't published an episode for the last 2 weeks. So it's been 3 weeks since the last episode. Part of it was the first week I was on vacation, right? I took a trip out of town, and so I had warned you guys that I wasn't going to be able to produce or to publish an episode for that week. But then last week, when I was getting prepped and then actually trying to record this episode, I was just having such a hard time with it. Again, if you have listened to the show, well, if you haven't listened to the show, if this is your first time tuning into Path of the Jedi, welcome and thanks for tuning in. My name is Ronnie Cruz, and well, just to kind of catch you up, I've been having a really difficult time concentrating and focusing. It's just stuff I'm going through right now, and so to tackle producing these episodes has gotten more and more challenging. I did try to record last week, and because I really wanted to stay consistent and release an episode as regularly and timely as possible. But I tried for 3 days to record an episode last week, and I just couldn't get through it. And even today, as I'm recording this for release tomorrow, the regular release day, Wednesday, I've been sitting here for hours trying to wrangle not just the themes for this episode, but just to wrangle my thoughts and my brain and to get it all to concentrate and focus long enough so that I can give you an episode. So it's maddening in that regard that I'm having such a hard time doing that. But also maddening because we're going to be talking about Syril and his descent into what I would call madness and rage, and to his ultimate demise. Really, it's really for me the most fascinating aspect of this particular episode. We're going to be talking about Andor season 3. No, I'm sorry, season 2, episode 8. Who are you? And if you've seen this episode, you know that so much happens in this episode, and there are so many things that we could talk about, from the politics and propaganda that's happening, the powder keg, and the conflict between the empire and the rebels, the takeover, the hostile and militarization of and takeover of Gorman, and then the individual character journeys and the psychologies of everyone. I mean, we could talk about Dedra, we can talk about the Gorman rebels and where their head state is at. I can even spend an entire episode talking about Lacine and what a useless human being he is, but I won't get into it. If you don't know who Lacine is, he's the character that for some reason is always dressed like a cobbler. I've said that in past episodes, but they've got him in a cobbler costume for some reason. But like, yeah, for me, he has served absolutely no purpose in to further the cause or to help the insurgency. Like, he's the most useless individual. I mean, like, from a storytelling standpoint and as a plot device, yeah, I mean, like, he has helped drive the story forward. But from in world, right, if you were in universe, he's completely useless. He's a completely waste of space. Anywho, neither here nor there. Sorry about that tangent. But I think for me, the most compelling aspect of this particular episode is Syril's journey, not only because it comes to an end, but how he comes to an end in this particular episode, and the pit stops and again the descent that he makes every step of the way is just so intriguing for me. So that's what we're going to get into. Cyril has three confrontations in this episode, three very distinct interactions. And with each interactions, we see him spiraling further and further into madness, into the loss of control and rage. And we see that in each interaction and confrontation, becoming more and more violent until, of course, his eventual and untimely demise. It's such a crazy single episode character arc, mind you, single episode, in what is itself a perhaps the most riveting episode thus far in this series. By the way, and I know I've already given some spoilers. If you haven't seen this episode, please pause. Because this discussion is going to be full of spoilers, so I don't want to ruin this episode for you. It's worth watching clean. I mean, every episode of Andor is worth watching clean. So I encourage you to go ahead and pause the show and go watch this episode of Andor and then come back.
I'm going in. Cover me, Porkins.
Okay, we're back. So let's just get right into it. Syril's first interaction is with Caro Rylance. Caro recognizes and spots Syril walking down the street during like the protest walk or the march, and actually initiates the confrontation. It was Caro that initiates the confrontation, accusing Syril of that of his participation in all of this, right? And already, even though this was the first interaction, Syril reacted very violently. He was already very violent in this first interaction, which is not necessarily normal for Syril, at least at this point. And I think it's because he's in complete denial. Right, like he's in disbelief, he's in denial about his own participation in all of this, and there, Caro Rylance is accusing him, and blaming him for everything that's happened. In Cyril's head, he was like, I didn't know, man. Like I was really legitimately trying to help you from, these potentially outside interference and the spies and all this stuff happening. And so like the denial is really, really strong, and Caro's accusations of Syril makes him react very violently, and at the end of the confrontation, he actually throws the old man to the ground, which like that's not really very cool. You don't throw old people to the ground. So we see again Cyril's state of mind here, and just the dissonance that's happening. What he had been believing this entire time versus reality. Right. I think that's the real conflict that's happening, and the conflict, the external conflict that he's having, these confrontations that he's having with throughout the episode, are the external manifestations of that internal conflict. So he's super worked up. He's super angry that Caro Rylance is accusing him of causing all these problems on Gorman, when really he was, in his head, he was trying to help. And so with all that built up, even more built up anger, he goes to the next person, which is Dedra. Now, Dedra, of course, is the one person that Syril thought he could trust, and the one person that was guiding him through all of this, right? And obviously they're in a relationship, if we can call it that. It's not necessarily a healthy relationship, at least from the outside, right? As viewers, we know that that is not a healthy relationship. But for Syril, like he's participating, he's happy in it. He I think. Part of him wants to believe that it's a healthy relationship, and that it's a partnership of equals. And to find out that he's been manipulated and lied to this entire time by, again, the one person he thought and believed and really felt like he could trust. I mean, the person that he shared his bed with, the person that he had been living with. Like this is a moment where he's really like feeling the level of betrayal that has happened. And again, like he acts out on it even more violently than he did with Caro. He actually is strangling Dedra in this scene. Right, and of course he comes to his senses and lets her go, because he's Syril. He's not a killer necessarily. Another kind of side thing that's really, really interesting in this particular interaction is Dedra, right? Like how she behaves, and how, as the manipulator and abuser in the relationship, right? She's controlling things to her benefit. It's so fascinating to me, and kudos to Denise Goff in this scene. Well, kudos to all the actors. Everybody performed absolutely beautifully in this episode. Denise Goff, in particular, in this particular scene, goodness gracious, masterful performance as the abusive person in this relationship, right? As the abuser, the manipulator in this relationship, as the person who was really controlling everything and manipulating the other individual. She, after Cyril lets go of her, lets go, of her throat, basically. um, she is trying to gain control back of him, right? And first she tries to appeal to his, his soft side, and like, yeah, we're gonna be fine. We're gonna go home. We're gonna be comfortable, etc., etc. And then when she, I think, realizes that she doesn't have control and that it's not working, she then turns to something a little stronger and gaslights him and says things like, "Look, I don't know where all this was. You weren't complaining when you were getting all the promotions and we were getting all, the accolades and we were getting treated well, right? Like really, really throwing it back at him, which is classic, again, classic abuser behavior. Like that's abuser manipulator one on one. And I'm not saying she necessarily is aware of that. I think a lot of abusers and manipulators aren't aware that they do what they do. They just know how to get what they get, and well, how to get what they want. And so, this is an example of that with Dedra. She has had these kind of unconscious bag of tricks to get Cyril to do what she wants. And I think in the last handful of episodes, in the last 2 3 episodes, you see that those tricks are working a little less and less, right. Like I think it was the last episode where she kisses him in the hallway, and she kind of is able to rein him back in. In this one, that soft touch didn't work, and so she goes a little harder by gaslighting him and saying, "Look, yeah, I mean, you weren't complaining when you were getting all these promotions and we were living nicely, but that also doesn't work anymore either because Cyril's already snapped at this point, right? I think he snapped at the beginning of the episode. That's why he's been acting so violently in each of these confrontations. So yeah, it's at a loss, right? Like he's realizing now that the person that he trusted, the person that was he was supposed to be able to count on, his better half, his significant other, it was absolutely not in it for his best benefit, right? And I think at this point, there's got to be a part of him that's telling himself, that's saying to himself, "How could I have been such a fool? Right? How could I have fallen for all of this?" And so this is again the further descent into rage and into anger and into violence and madness. The next time we see Cyril is in his confrontation with Cassian, which ultimately again ends up being his final confrontation. Beautiful, beautiful scene and a beautiful end in terms of progression as it builds up to this almost operatic ending for Cyril. He at this point I think is in full on rage. He still has to find somebody to blame for his life being where it is, for his life falling apart. And who better to be the target of that than Cassian? I mean, I think from Cyril's perspective, Cassian was what started all of this going, right? He was the catalyst to this ball rolling and to really rolling out of control again to where it is, to where Cyril's life is today. So by the time he sees Cassian, he's just out for blood, right? He wants to destroy Cassian because Cassian is the root and the cause of his life completely falling apart. The funny thing is, when he's just about to kill Cassian, right? He has the rifle, the blaster, aimed at Cassian. He's got the advantage. Cassian's on the ground. Cassian asks him, "Who are you?" And we get the title of this episode. Like Cassian doesn't even know who this guy is, and so I think that was really a wake up call for Cyril. And like, I've been chasing this guy, and I'm blaming this guy for causing all these problems in my life, and the reason, and he's the reason for why everything has fallen apart, but he doesn't even know who I am, right? And again, I think that was a real wake up call for him. Like the question itself, not only that Cassian doesn't know who he is, but maybe he didn't know who he was, right? Maybe Cyril himself didn't know who he was. And it was enough time in this briefest of moments to give him pause for Caro Rylance to come out of the blue and shoot him in the head, right? shoot him in the head. Very Deus ex machina. And if you don't know what that is, just look it up. I'm not going to explain it. Um, but it was almost poetic. It's kind of, for me, very Shakespearean, like his arc, his journey in this episode, how it ended. Very operatic. I mean, it's in 3 acts, right? 3 interactions. Very kind of Greek tragedy. Cyril story, and really, I think, yeah, it's very somber, right? Very sobering. This entire episode is very somber. The way it ends, right? Everybody is kind of um, destroyed at the end of this, emotionally, mentally, physically. A lot of people lost their lives, but it is very sober episode. And again, Cyril, I think Cyril's story is yeah, it's the highlight. It's the highlight of this entire episode. It seemed to me that in watching this episode, that Cyril didn't see any of this coming, right? Like, he was blindsided by all of it, which is why he kept spiraling and spiraling with each interaction. And I mean, honestly, like, it seemed like nobody saw any of this coming in this episode, right? Dedra didn't see Cyril reacting this way necessarily. The Gorman rebels, for sure, they never know what the hell's going on in the first place. Cassian couldn't see any of this coming, at least not from afar, right? Like, he could see it in the moment, how things were unfolding. So, like, everybody seemed to have been caught off guard, and again with Cyril, it's that final realization that maybe all the signs were there, right? Maybe all the signs were there, and I could totally relate. I thought that this was going to be the primary theme for this episode, and like, with being caught off guard, being blindsided. I was going to go with that because recently we lost a dog. We lost another dog. She was old. She was, advanced age, 17 and a half. Um, and it's one of those things where it's kind of like, okay, you know that she's slowing down, and yeah, at this age we're lucky to get, another year. Her health was in a way that we felt like she, compared to our previous dogs, who lived to advanced ages, 16 and one 18. Sh The last dog that just recently passed away, Little Miss is her name. She was relatively spry and still very, up and about and active and able. She was still able to go upstairs and stuff like that. So, we thought we had plenty more time with her. And, during the time between the last episode that we released here at Path of the Jedi and now, her health took really a turn for the worse. And it was pretty drastic and sudden. And like, there was nothing more we could do. That we took her to the emergency, and the only thing the doctors could advised us to do was to euthanize, right? And because there was no helping her beyond that, beyond what she was experiencing. So, I felt really kind of sideswiped, and that has happened a few times with the pets. Again, we've had some dogs that have lived to pretty long lives. And every time has felt like, it has felt sudden, and it has felt like I didn't see it coming necessarily, or it was sideswiped. And it's one of those things that you never really can prepare for. As old and as your pets might be, you never think that, the morning you wake up, and yeah, you do your regular morning walk, and your regular afternoon, sit on a chair and read book, and have your dog in your lap. You never think that that's going to be the last one. We never do in any situation. So the loss always feels like you're being blindsided, and it isn't until you look back in hindsight that you can maybe identify some of the signs. And as much as I hate the saying hindsight is 2020, it really isn't until you look back that you can kind of identify, maybe, yeah, there were some signs, right? And maybe I should have paid attention a little bit more. She wasn't eating. Her appetite wasn't as good as it was the last couple of days, and you can point to these little things that again make sense in hindsight, Um, but at the same time, yeah, you can't really get into that, like, because, like, what could you have done better, right? That, to me, I don't know. It's one of the hardest things, at least for this particular example of being a pet owner. Yeah, the amount of punishment you put yourself through, and you know, thinking that it could have gone a different way if you had made different decisions. Um, I think the counterpoint to that is, at least as a pet owner, we always, I think, make the best decisions that we can, and we always try, are constantly aware, and mindful of being the best dog parent and pet parent that we can be in the moment, right? So that we're not left with any regrets. I mean, certainly, through my life, I mean, I'm pretty old. I do have some regrets of things I could have done better with my dogs, but I can't, you can't punish yourself with that, right? You can't punish yourself with that, and so I recognize those things, and I own those things, but I also use those things not to beat myself up, but to do better, in the moment, and of course moving forward, right? In the moment really is the most important, I think. Having, again, that mindfulness, and being in the here and now, and keeping your awareness on, yourself and the decisions that you're making in the moment. Sure, we all get triggered, and are reactive in situations, but the more awareness you bring to the here and now, I think the more you can mitigate those things, and even if you do, find yourself in a reactive state, you can go back and make amends for it, right? I say all this because I think Cyril, to a degree, felt blindsided. I don't necessarily think he was blindsided, or caught off guard, or didn't see all of this happening. Of course, we as the viewing public have the convenience of being able to watch this as an outsider perspective and see it all coming. But I think Cyril was, or felt blindsided, um, only because things were not going, or did not go the way he had wanted it or hoped for them to go, right? And that's why he was in that reactive state, and spiraling deeper and deeper into rage, and into madness, and into violence, right? But I think there was a part of him that definitely saw the signs, right? And that definitely knew that all of this stuff was going on, kind of, in the background, but didn't want to necessarily acknowledge or accept those things, because what was happening still felt good, right? He still felt good until it didn't feel good, right? Until it wasn't to his benefit, and again, that's what caused his reactiveness, and why he was acting out in rage and in violence. At the very last moment, when Cassian asks him who he is, I think that's what snapped him out of it, and he finally. I don't know. Maybe this is just in my own headcanon, but I think he finally admits to himself, or at least realizes that, yeah, I did see all of this coming. All the signs were there. I was just choosing to ignore them. And really, the question of who are you, from Cassian, I think was something that he was coming to grips with, in real time, in that brief moment before he got killed, right? Before he got killed, he had created his identity around something that wasn't real this entire time, and so, to be asked this question, I think, was for him, really, like, there was no answer, right? Yes, Cassian, he knew, like, part of him knew that Cassian was, like, had no idea who he was, but at the same time, I think he, at this point, had no idea who he was, and again, making Cyril's story so tragic, so tragic. So, yeah, yeah. Could Cyril have made different decisions, and that would have led to better outcomes? Absolutely, absolutely. And again, there's the convenience that he is a fictional character, and it could have been written a completely different way. For us asking that question, it depends. It depends on how it's framed. If you're asking yourself or somebody else that question, right? If like you should have done something differently, and you should have made different decision, you should have made a better decision, or you shouldn't have done that, you shouldn't have done this. If it's framed in a way to kind of punish, all right, and chastise, again, whether it's somebody else or yourself, it's not really a fair thing to do. And I've had that done to me by people in the past, people who didn't necessarily know better. And I've done it to myself, like as a result of having been exposed to that kind of behavior. um, but what I've learned is it's not really healthy, and it's not really helpful, right? Just punishing for punishing sake, because it that in that framework, it has no solution, and it has no resolution. But you can ask that question in a healthy way. What could I have done differently? If you're framing it from a moving forward perspective, right? Not just blaming and punishing for the past, but for moving forward, again, to have a productive conversation about whatever it is that happened. And this can serve both for stuff that were challenges and adversities, or stuff that went well, right? Stuff that were happy times, because like there are infinite things that you could have done differently in any situation, good or bad, from the past, right? So I think it can be a healthy practice, if well, I mean, what is the past if it can't serve as lessons for how you can live moving forward, right? Moving forward. So yeah, be careful of that. Be careful of that conversation you're having with yourself. Be careful of that conversation as you have it with others, especially if you're in a position of authority, or influence. A parent and a child, for example, you have to be really careful with these conversations, because it does leave imprints, right? It does leave imprints. Um, Also, as I said earlier, you can work to being more self-aware, self-aware of your own reactiveness, so that you can work on being more present and mindful and in the moment, right? So that you can make as level-headed a decision and choice as you can in every moment. But I think at the end of it, the real message is you can't prepare for every contingency. You can't control everything, even if you are fully aware, and if you're mindful at all times. Things will still happen, and there are things that are ultimately beyond your scope of control. I think as I've gotten older, I've become a better and better pet parent, dog parent, and as good dog owners and dog parents as we try to be, the unexpected still happens. So you can't really control it, and that's just life, right? Like that's just life, and that I know I use being a pet parent as an example, but really the life can be influenced in towards the direction that you want, but in on along the journey, there will be the things ultimately that you can't account for, and it's impossible to account for everything, right? It's impossible to account for everything. So it's just a matter of how you navigate things, I think, moving forward, and whether or not you use the experience to punish yourself, or to build yourself, and therefore those around you, but primarily to build yourself moving forward. I think when I encounter individuals that seem the most wise and most well adjusted, are the ones that do that, the ones who take the time to not punish themselves, but to reflect on their experiences, again, good and bad, and build themselves from that. And this isn't necessarily an age thing, right? Like I'm not saying that naturally comes with age. I know people who go in their entire lives and not display a high level of mental and emotional maturity. I mean, it's just how it goes. The one interaction that Cyril did not get in his final moments was an interaction with his mother, Edie. And I find it absolutely, absolutely fascinating that the episode itself, this episode of Andor, ends with Edie. For me, it, I see this moment for Edie, unconsciously, of course. I think she is reveling in everything that's happened. Of course, I don't. We don't necessarily know that she knows yet that Cyril has been killed in the conflict. But I think for her, it's given her personality, given her neuroses and psychoses. Uh, I think unconsciously for her, it's an opportunity to be the center of the world, at least for a little bit. With her circle of friends and her connections, she's gonna have everybody's attention for the next however long, couple weeks, right? Right. And I think that's just kind of, again, part of her mental sickness, that she is the center of the universe, and that's why she treated Cyril the way she treated Cyril, abusively, of course. And again, the most fascinating and interesting and compelling thing to me of why of ending that episode with Edie, a close up, a slow zoom in on Edie, is that she was really largely responsible for why Cyril was the way he is, and therefore why his life ended the way it ended. I think realizing everything that he realized in this episode, Cyril was finally in a position to take responsibility for his own life. Because that's the other part of the conversation. Yes, there were so many people that were manipulating him and that he was faulting for his life unraveling and falling apart the way it did. However, the common factor in all of those interactions was him. Yes, Cyril was very much the victim in his especially close relationships. I mean, he was being manipulated since the first day we met him in season one. However, I think he is also equal parts responsible, and I think that's what he realized right before he got shot. I think he came to the realization that I had a hand in this as well. I could have I saw all of this coming, and I could have made different decisions, right? Right. And so, Cyril, I think, is a cautionary tale. Is a cautionary tale. Yes, there are things in our lives that we may not necessarily have had full control over, but we are active participants in all of this, right? In our lives. I mean, who is the common denominator in everything that you've gone through? Well, it's you. I mean, that's pretty simple, right? You have been through everything that you have been through. Um, and so, at the very least, you have had some hand, and in how things have unfolded in your life. And so, yeah, like, take that responsibility, and everything that we've been talking about in terms of, like, looking at your past and learning from the lessons so that you can build moving forward. That's part of taking that responsibility. Sure, some things may not have been your fault, and sure, some things you couldn't necessarily control, but you can control how you respond. You can take responsibility for how you react and the choices that you make. So yeah, yeah, I don't really necessarily have a lesson for this one, but I just thought, man, what a compelling and mind blowing, interesting, well written, beautiful episode in human study and human behavior. And it all really, yeah, it all for me in this episode revolves around Cyril, because I mean, it's the end of his story, right? And in being the end of his story, we can look back at the entire arc and see how everything and why everything unfolded the way it did. So yeah, well, that's going to be it for our discussion today. I don't know. It's not necessarily somber ending, but I think it was really, again, a fascinating character study and a fascinating study on human behavior and human interaction psychology, right? So okay, yeah. We're gonna end it. We're gonna end our discussion there. I'm not gonna do any fancy closeout like I usually do. I mean, I'll play the outro music like I usually do, but it's just one of those things. I need to get myself together. I've gotten this far in the recording, so I'm gonna go ahead and count that as a win. I appreciate you tuning in again. I am really working hard to build this show, and as I think mentioned at the beginning of the episode, it's currently really difficult to do that in my current state. But I'm dedicated to doing it, so I would really appreciate your help, and ask that if you're not already following the show, please follow the show. That's the biggest thing, the biggest help you can give in growing this show. And well, I mean, if you found value in it, if you're still listening, chances are you enjoyed the conversation. Well, it's not really a conversation; it's a conversation between you and I. Chances are you've enjoyed it. So please follow for more. You can also go back if you're new to the show. You can go back and listen to our back catalog. There's plenty of stuff to listen to. I've in episodes where I've got myself a little bit more together. But following the show will really help, again, to get the word out there. The algorithm sees that it's getting more followers, and therefore it pushes it out to more people. So I would really appreciate it, because I do have a goal of attending the next celebration in 2027 in Los Angeles as a presenter of some sort, or a panelist of some sort, like as a official podcaster. And so I need your help. I need your help to bring that dream and that goal to fruition. So following is the first thing you can do, and then the second thing is sharing the episode. Right? If you enjoyed this material, or if you've heard past episodes that you've really enjoyed, past discussions that you really appreciated, chances are there's other people out there that would appreciate it as well. And really, the only thing all I ask of you is to think of one person who you think would enjoy it as well, right? Just one person, and just share it with that one person. If everybody shared it with one person, this show could really gain a lot of traction. So I would appreciate that help, and I think it would really go a long way to getting these messages out there. I am committed to not only continuing the show, but obviously I'm working on myself. For those of you who are longtime listeners, I think you are privy to the challenges I've been experiencing the last handful of months. So you know that I'm always working to better myself, and I am seeking help to continue to better myself. And I will continue to work on getting better here on the show for you, so that it can help you, right, and help you in the things that you might be going through. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you sitting here with me and kind of fumble through today's episode and struggle through the thoughts and the ideas and sharing them and synthesizing them for you here on the show. So thank you. I appreciate it. Of course, you'll catch me next week with a fresh new one. We're going to continue our conversation of Andor. We're going to be on Andor season 2, episode 9. So it'll be the conclusion of this particular 3-episode story arc, right? 7, 8, and 9. Which if episode 8 was any indication, episode 9 should be another banger. I'm feeling like the rest of the entire season, 9, 10, 11, and 12 are just going to be absolute bangers. So really excited for that. I haven't seen these episodes yet. I'm only watching this as I go. I didn't binge it all in one weekend, so that adds a level of joy and excitement to bringing you these discussions every week. So tune in next week for a fresh new one. Again, we're going to be talking about Andor season 2, episode 9. So until then, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and may the Force be with you. For light and life, This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company nor Lucasfilm Limited and is intended for entertainment, educational, and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names and sounds and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is intellectual property of Path of the Jedi unless otherwise indicated.